Ladies and gentlemen and ladies, welcome to another week, another episode of the Medicine Ball Podcast. You could have chosen to spend your time anywhere. You rock with me today. Thank you. I never take that lightly. Before we get into it, let my beat drop. Yes, that's right. Welcome to Medicine Ball with your boy LS3 to be exact. And if you ain't in shape, at least your brain should be. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Medicine Ball Podcast, where we focus on giving your brain a six-pack by exercising your mind. Now, exercising your mind means that you actively think about and deal with all situations by first seeking to do anything other than what you are normally programmed and or comfortable in doing. Now, if you're someone who struggles and wants to get better at thinking about things beforehand, as opposed to reacting in ways that require less effort, well, just like anything you want to get better at, it does require training, practice, and work. Now, I'm well aware that thinking about things beforehand as opposed to responding off instinct does require effort. And who doesn't prefer things that are easy? Well, the first step, my friends, can be very easy, and that's to begin to look at all things from an unbiased point of view, which in itself will increase your curiosity in life. Now, exercising your mind won't give you all the answers. You will, however, begin to look at things with more peace, understanding, and patience, while simultaneously equipping yourself with more tools and strategies to help you effectively deal with this thing called life. Now, before we go any further, I'm no doctor, no psychiatrist, no psychologist. I have, however, been diagnosed with bipolar disorder level 1 for 16 years. And to be honest, I got to a point in my life where I was looking at the person I was becoming versus the person I wanted to be. And that, among other things, required me to look at my mental health responsibly. So whether or not you're diagnosed or know someone who's diagnosed or have symptoms or just want to know more about it, it doesn't matter. Maybe you're one of the many people who could just use some tips, tricks, and different ideas to help you get through day-to-day life. Pull up a seat, kick up your feet. This is your family, man. Welcome home, no judgment zone. This week's episode 521. That's right. Season 5, episode 21, Chip Off the Old Block. Let's get right into it. Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen and ladies, welcome to another week, another episode of the Medicine Ball Podcast. Yo, like, subscribe, share, follow, all that good stuff. And it's important that you're following and, subscribed, especially if you like giveaways. Coming up, and I've decided for my season finale, that's when I'm going to do the giveaway or the drawing for the pair of Nike Panda Dunks. So if you like shoes, a pair of Nike Panda Dunks. If for some reason my brother, who is it's coming from his store, doesn't have your size, there will be a store credit of the equivalent value, and I have confirmed that with him. So this week, what I want y'all to do is start going to my Instagram and my Facebook. I will be making posts that give you a little bit more information on how you can be entered in for this drawing, as well as the day that we're going to draw for you to win a pair or equivalent store credit for some Nike Panda Dunks. All right. Other than that, I took off last week. It was Easter. And if you're someone who follows the podcast and knows me, like I say, I try to say that I'm not a monk, but I am fairly spiritual. So I actually went through the whole week, kind of reading the Bible and scriptures in reference to what the actual days of the week meant. And I'm not going to get into it too much because Saturday is technically the day of rest, but Sunday is perceived as the day of the resurrection. And just for me to kind of honor God, I didn't want to do any work on that day. I wanted to spend that time, in my Bible and scripture and just kind of out in nature. I know it sounds odd, but that's why I was missing last week. So I apologize for that. I haven't decided yet if I'm going to end this season on 24 episodes for Kobe or 25 yet, but I'll know that answer next week, but y'all tune in, tap in for the drawing and everything. All right, let's get right into this week's episode. I know it's a lot of sporting events going on, playoffs, schools, all kind of stuff going on, so I don't want to hold y'all too long, but I think it's important that I continue to pull out this content, all right? So as I'm on my journey and just, continuing to talk to people, I explained to you all, and he may not make it on this season, but one of my accountability partners, somebody I talk to, we're able to be transparent with each other about some of the things that we go through. And I would say now, and y'all know how I feel about the Lakers. If you haven't, go back and listen to some episodes. But I'm a Kobe Bryant fan. So I'm not the biggest LeBron James fan, but as I talk to more people and being that Kobe is past, right, and more people are just more aware of LeBron James and the things that he has done, I find myself using LeBron James as kind of an example when I'm trying to explain certain things to people. And it's not that because I'm not a LeBron hater, right? But it's just like, bro, you wearing this golden armor, you wearing a Lakers jersey, and you don't have no Kobe in you. But even that's okay. They got a couple of other people out there who's handling that. But my bigger thing is, I was talking to my people, my accountability partner, just my brother. He's my bro, right? Not just a random. And he was explaining to me like how he's kind of come to this point to where he, has done everything right and is being aware of his decisions and his actions and what he's posting and how he's living and what he's intaking. And it seems like it just doesn't even out to, and I don't want to say like a life free of adversity, but you might be expecting things to run smoother, especially if you're putting forth the effort and so forth, so on, to try to, make things right and live a righteous life. And the thing that I told to him is, man, like, bro, to whom much is given, much is tested. And if you LeBron, it's on you. One thing that I admire about LeBron and his ability to lead is, bro, I can see it, but LeBron knows like what people's shooting percentage is from what side of the court, depending on the arena they're in. And not just his team, but just like the other people he's playing against. And one thing that I told him is like, it never ends as you try to develop and, make yourself better and be the best version of yourself. It never ends. You just got to keep chipping away. And from that conversation, in my reflective time, as I told you all, I do think that you should journal, but I'm exercising a little bit more now. So I'm out in nature. I just got time to think, right? I don't mind being alone with my thoughts. And your life, if we come from scripture, you're wonderfully and beautifully made, right? Your life is a work of art. And what a lot of us don't realize is that the adversities we go through, us reinventing ourselves, it's almost like we were given this block of cement or this block of clay. And we're chiseling, right, or sculpting what we want our lives to be. And if you're a little bit more aware, you should be, especially if you listen to this podcast, you should be chipping and sculpting away at your thought processes, your character traits, your personality, your goals. And the biggest thing that I need people to understand is it doesn't end. It's not the Matrix. And let's just go on to this Matrix thing a little bit, right? Because this is episode 521, Chip Off the Old Block, and we're talking about sculpting your life and your life being a piece of art. But I want to just pause on this Matrix idea because my people who I was talking about, when it comes to the Matrix movie, I feel like everybody understands it, but doesn't really understand it. They're like, oh yeah, we're in the Matrix and, we're in this false reality that isn't real, but in this reality we can, live whatever way we want, and it's a way to keep us programmed and so forth and so on. And everybody gets that. Everybody always gets that concept. But as I was talking to my homie about the Matrix, he got that concept, and I was like, well, have you ever seen the Matrix? Did you see what it was like? And I had to explain to him that, like, yo, on the other side of the Matrix, right, the people is fighting for their life every day. They didn't even have a place where they were stationary, right? I'm a movie buff, but I'm a nerd too. So it's like they was moving the ships around while they were going into the Matrix so they wouldn't be located by the robots, right? And the thing that I tried to tell him is everybody's so caught up on the Matrix, but they didn't realize the deeper story, which was life wasn't what we thought it was. And not only that, bro, you got to move every day to stay alive. You have to move every day. You can't stop creating yourself. Once you got it figured out, that's not it. You don't figure it out and just be kicking it in the Matrix. No, once you get up out that joint, it's real life, right? So I think a lot of times when people go through things, and let's go to a spiritual aspect real quick. And one thing that I realized early on is just like, just because you're working on yourself, just because you're trying to be aware of your thoughts and your actions and how you're approaching situations and your thought processes and your paradigms, just because you're willing to be aware of sin, et cetera, et cetera. Let me take a side point on that. I just was at a event, a battle rap event. Long story short, the event was in KOD, King of Diamonds, which is a strip club. Now, I ain't against no strip club or whatnot, but I thought it was important for me to go back up under that caption and be like, I'm here for an event, not for the dancers. And somebody hit me on the side and asked me about that. And I was like, bro, and this goes back to this mental laziness and this sculpting thing. You got to always be aware. It doesn't stop. And I'm just giving y'all this example to let you know, like, no matter how much I post or whatnot, it doesn't stop. But I had to go back and they were like, well, but you got a problem with strippers? And I was like, no. But I was like, bro, what I'm talking right now and what I'm presenting and the way that I'm living my life, it doesn't really align with me just randomly posting a photo of me being in King of Diamonds, which is a strip club. That shows a lack of mental laziness and mental everything I'm talking about would be BS if I didn't go back and make that statement and acknowledge, like, I know how it looks, right? So back to the spiritual aspect. I realized early on that just right, bro, just because you in your Bible and you being righteous and whatnot, and this is where I realize a lot of people who, if you're a Christian, I can't speak on any too many more religions, but if you're a Christian and you quote unquote in your Bible, this lets me know that you may not have a understanding of a grasp of like what the Bible is trying to explain. And I mean, it ain't even hidden. He says it many times. We're not in the world as a believer of of righteousness, right? We're not in the world of good doing. We're actually, and the Bible says this, bro. This is the devil's world. The Bible makes many references to this. You can't be a friend of God, of Christ, and be a friend of this world. You know what I'm saying? If you're a friend of this world, you're gonna be an enemy of Him, right? So once you start to grasp that concept and understand when you're trying to be righteous and whatnot, you're really going against the grain of the environment that we're in. Live in the world, but don't be of the world. You follow me? So just because you being righteous and you being nice, and I think I talked about this on an early episode, bro. Everybody ain't playing by the same game. And because they're not playing by the same game, that doesn't mean that you switch up, especially if you're a believer. So I think a lot of people have this misunderstanding that like there's no stress and there's no adversities in life if you're doing quote unquote trying to live the biblical way, which in itself is another kind of faulty thing because we can't earn our way into heaven. No way. Our good deeds are like dirty rags. And it goes back kind of to this thing about people not having an understanding of the Bible and what the word really says, but you got to rock with it. So let's get back to this sculpture thing. So as you're going through life and you're becoming a better person, and excuse me if y'all can hear Mamba blowing his hot breath all in the mic. But I can even use myself in the podcast with going from video to audio or, things of that nature. What I'm going to do today is give you three things to keep in mind. So I know normally I give people tips, but when it comes to life and sculpting yourself, it's not going to be easy. And I think a lot of the time, you know, things start off with our inability to realize that we're not objective, right? Like we can be wrong. And I've, begun discussing me changing my paradigms and going into that, changing my complete thought process. So I got to thinking about life and its ups and its downs and its adversities and the things we may see as negative. And I was like, bro, you can't quit if you're trying to develop, you got to keep chipping off of the block, right? You got to keep working at it. You got to keep being attention. So, and I'm giving y'all some of the things, but I'm going to give you three things that you could keep in the mind as you go through life, continuing to chip off of your old block. All right. So the first thing I want to do is kind of set the stage, set the situation. Imagine yourself as a sculptor when it comes to your life and this raw material. We could have used pottery, but I think for the sake of this episode and discussion, we're going to use it as you're being an actual sculptor. So let's think about the tool really, and there's more tools, I'm sure, but let's think about the two main tools that, a sculptor uses. And for those of you guys who don't know, I think a lot of Greek artwork or famous Greek pieces are sculptures, which is pretty much these human figures that have been carved out of marble or whatever stone that they're using. But you're the sculptor of your life. I want to set the tone here. Let's think about the two most important tools, the hammer and the chisel. What is the hammer? The hammer is the power. It's the force. The hammer is the thing that is going to be used to strike the chisel, but we're going to go to that in a second, but it's blunt force. It's used to get something done. It's an intentional strike, right? And when it comes to sculpting, you've stepped back and hopefully you have, stepped back and taken a look at what it is you're trying to form or what you're trying to change. And the hammer is the force. What is the other tool? The chisel. The chisel is kind of the skill. Now, notice you can't have one without the other, and that's going to go into the three things I want you to keep in mind as we continue discussing this rather. The chisel is more of the strategy, right? It's the thoughtful process. It's used for more pinpoint accuracy. It's used to actually make the cutting, and it can't be used for itself because, well, I'm going to hold off on that because it's going to go into what I'm going to say about the three things I want you to keep in mind. But the chisel is used to make, the fine cuts on the stone, if you will. If you were to just take the hammer, you could just strike the stone, right? But one thing about chiseling or sculpting, as I went and I kind of looked this up, is when you're dealing with stone, you have to have some knowledge about the way that the stone is going to split and crack in hopes that it falls off the correct way. And that's another thing I want to keep in mind. So I just wanted to kind of set the stage. When it comes to your life, you are a sculptor and you have these tools. One tool that's used more so for action, one tool that's used more so for refining. And as we start to work on this stone, this raw material, and start to carve out the person that we are, three things we want to keep in mind, all right? The first thing I want everyone to keep in mind when it comes to sculpting your life or chipping off the old block, right? Mistakes are inevitable. And I kind of spoke to it previously. One thing that most people may not realize when you're chiseling the stone, you don't know which way the stone is going to split and crack. Now, I'm sure after years, and that's why as you get older and you're sculpting your life, you're taking the chips off of this old block. You're able to make less mistakes or use your wisdom from previous experiences to make better mistakes. Not better mistakes, to make, well, you can even say better mistakes, but to be better, right? And to maybe have less pushback from it, right? So the thing you have to understand is mistakes are inevitable. I think a lot of people, myself included, tend to, and from a spiritual aspect, is really arrogant, think that we should be perfect. And I think this goes back into, me always talking about human beings having an unreasonably high confidence in their ability to do things that they've never even thought about, focused on, or, taking a shot at, right? Mistakes and failures are inevitable. And I say this all the time, and I'm going to continue to keep saying it, but it's only from those mistakes and those failures that you can learn to do something better. So when it comes to sculpting your life intentionally, and again, this can be applied to a goal, a situation, a mindset. When it comes to it, you have to know that there's going to be failure. There's going to be mistakes. There's going to be pieces that you chip off of this block that you're going to be like, man, I didn't want it to fall like that, or now it doesn't look quite right. It's going to happen. So the first thing you need to understand when you're trying to develop yourself or go after a goal or start something new is failure is inevitable. But you also got to keep in mind that only through those failures and those adversities do you learn to get better. All right. Number two, when it comes to chipping off the old block or sculpting your life, rather, you have to understand, and this is just kind of what I mentioned, that the hammer is needed to chisel away. And what I mean by that is you have to have intention. You have to strike. You have to have action. You can't just put the chisel to the stone and, even if you want to try to force it with your hand, you're not going to get very far. You have to have intent and be aware of the actions that you're taking. Let's think about it as you're being a real sculptor. Do you think when they're sculpting these pieces of art, they're just arbitrarily striking the chisel all recklessly and, or just sitting there looking at the piece of stone just forever and ever? No. They look at the stone and realize what they want to do, and then they take some action, right? So you have to be intentional when it comes to this whole idea of you chipping off the old block, of you refining yourself and reinventing yourself. If you're not intentional with it, let's just look at it from a character or a habit forming point of view. Habits, characteristics, traits, things that you're prone to do, if you don't take intention to kind of control those and make them be what you want them to be, they will become a mesh of things that you're intaking, bad decisions, and a lack of awareness. It's just going to mesh, and you're going to end up frustrated, possibly blaming others, but you have to kind of realize that, right? You have to be intentional with it. If you see something you don't like in your character, if you see something you don't like in some of your habits, whether it be saving or if you see some laziness, you can't sit there and just look at it. That's not enough. You have to also be intentional. You have to be intentional. You have to strike the actual chisel to start to chip away at this block. And in the mindset of a sculptor, let's be real, we're dealing with marble, we're dealing with stone. So some of us get to a point in our life. I'll use myself as an example. And I was just talking to my sister about my nephew about this. Bro, the further you are in life developing these non-advantageous characteristics, traits, patterns, or habit, it's going to take that much more intention and focus on that in order to change it. Let's think about a sculptor, right? Because, and I've watched a couple of videos, bro. When you get to a certain point in this sculpture, like maybe you got the upper torso done and the arms done, man, if you want the sculpture to be in a particular pose and you knock something off or it doesn't work out, you're not gonna just scrap the whole project. And I haven't done enough research, but I'm pretty sure there's things and tips and tricks of the trade that actual professional sculptors know so that they don't have to end up just blowing off the whole project because they made a mistake with with a piece of the stone. But the most important thing is you got to be intentional, man. If you want to work out more, you have to intentionally do something that's going to be active. If you want to exercise, maybe you can't go to the gym every day, but you probably need to be doing some jumping jacks or doing a walk or something every day. If you want to become more organized or write things down, you might not have to start right off the bat with that, but you might need to grab some sticky notes, right? You might need to, practice journaling. You know what I mean? There's certain things that you have to do. You have to be intentional about what you're doing when it comes to sculpting your life, sculpting yourself, and becoming this artwork that you are. Number 3, and it could possibly be the most important part. And this is something that I have to tell my accountability partner and tell myself when you're getting overwhelmed by life. Maybe you have a kid and you're not married with that person. Maybe you got laid off from a job and you're realizing that the job search is filled with scams. Maybe you want to do this with the podcast and do that with video, and you're realizing you're at a point where you're going to have to spend a little bit of money and do a little bit more research on AdSense and everything. The most important thing, and number 3, is realize that the art and the beauty is actually in the chiseling and the sculpting. It's not the finished product. You're never going to be finished when it comes to sculpting yourself until you're dead. And if you ever feel like you're complete before you pass away, you're doing yourself an injustice, especially the younger you are. If you're under 50 or 60 and you think you got it all figured out, you're not willing to change or anything, I feel sorry for you, because that's going to block you from a lot of life experiences and being able to understand people and grow and develop. You're going to become, rigid, and you're going to get lapped. You're going to end up being bitter. You have to realize that it's actually the journey. When you're sculpting, when you're chipping off of this old block and you working on the arms and you knock off a piece that makes the arm not look right, that's not a chance for you or a moment for you to get down on yourself or get upset. That's a chance for you to be like, oh man, now what can I make with what I have left? There's always creation there. Sometimes we're too focused on the goal, on the output, and we fall in love with that. And I'm not going to say sometimes, we all the time fall in love with the end of the movie, the end goal, the end result, the end bank account number, right? We can't take none of it with us. And that's not where the lesson is. The lesson is in the journey of the sculpting, the realizing, well, hey, I thought that I wanted this or I wanted to have this characteristic, but I'm feel like I want to be this type of person, or I want to change. The real beauty in the chipping off of the old block is the journey, the process. I'll give y'all another example. When I make beats, I have to. And the thing that I want y'all to understand, because this is, before I go into this beat thing, the thing that I want y'all to understand, because this is kind of like a two-sided kind of metaphor. Chipping off the old block is not quitting. That's getting up each day and just doing a little bit more, not being stagnant, right? That's getting up and take a step each day to develop yourself. Oh, okay, I didn't learn about this stream of income. Wow, there's a whole nother stream over here. Let me learn about this. That is a step. I talk often about my my journey when it comes to producing beats, man. And yeah, the output and the end of the beat is a beautiful thing, but bro, like just going from someone who had a program on my laptop with no YouTube, no Facebook, and all of that. I'm for real. I'm showing my age. It wasn't no YouTube. It wasn't no Facebook, bro. It wasn't no kind of like bulletin board where you can go and get tips. You was either in the studio with these folks or you was learning it and getting it out the mud on your own, right? When I think about Reason, which was the first program I had, music program I had, and it might have been something before that called Hip Hop DJ. I'm not sure, but this was years ago, and just I always tell this story because now I understand what a VST or a virtual instrument is. Just like literally pressing the tab button on my keyboard and all of these virtual instruments on my screen turning around. And this is after I had spent like maybe a year, maybe more, just learning it and thinking that I'm figuring it out and turning that around. And at that point, I was a little bit younger, and I can see now, I'm not even gonna lie, even as I'm older, I probably wouldn't be as excited to find out there's something so complex that can change the whole workflow process after I have committed so much time and energy. And I mean, to this day, um, I would say that that's something I'm working on because it didn't carry over. I mean, I have to stop myself now because it'll be like I was talking about applications and learning about the applicant scanning system, right? And being like, oh man, or even when it came to editing a PDF for your resume and realizing that one of the tools I use to do things for the podcast can edit it. I have to often, catch myself and be like, well, bro, this is not a reason to be frustrated because you've been doing it. You just made things easier. You've actually learned. But when I was younger and that happened, I remember when I turned that around, and y'all, I can't even explain it. Like, man, if y'all got one of them old school stereos or old school TV or anything that you're looking at from the front that turn it around and look at all the plugs into it. If you got one of those 5 speaker systems and you weren't the person who set it up, right? Turn that main box around. That's what it was like doing on a computer after you have been working with a program with no kind of like information or learning given to it or way to even get it on it, and you find something like that out. And I remember vividly as a kid just like pulling the wires from this place to change the sound and all of that. And now as I'm older, I realize like, yo, that was the old school VSTs. That was like the very beginning of it going from like hardware to the digital age, and they were still replicating that. Now I don't even know, like I use FL Studio and everything, but I just can't explain like how much that was like an actual stereo or a piece of equipment that you turn around, have to plug stuff in and drag it. So you could make the whole, now mind you, I'm talking about beat making, right? We're not even talking about the loops or nothing. We talking about switching the plugs to get different sounds and get different effects to happen. It was like I had unlocked a whole new thing. But that's not something I would have learned or been able to utilize if I would have given up at that point, or even given up on the music. As like I told you at one point, I had like a 3, 4, 5 year layoff where I ain't touch music. I didn't touch no system, right? You can't. You have to continue to chip off of the old block. So I want to leave y'all with that today. As y'all go through y'all journey, man, maybe you in a financial situation. Maybe you in a job hunt. Maybe you in a house hunt. Maybe you've spent 30, 40 years in a field and realized that's not what you want to do. I saw something today that said that Tim Allen, who's an actor, was a carpenter at the age of 30, right? Vera Wayne didn't make her first dress until she was 40 years old. Just keep that in mind, because I know we're in a society, and I'm guilty of it too, where we just want to hurry up and get to the goal all the time, and we get frustrated and we get aggravated because of the things that it takes to get there, right? But what we really should do is, and you're not going to always be able to do it, right? I don't want to set this unrealistic expectation of, oh, you should always be in and all of that. Nah, but when you could catch yourself and be like, well, wait, this is an opportunity for me to change. Like the world is yours. The possibilities are endless if you put your mind to it and stop beating up on yourself. Think about it. I have to tell myself this all the time because I put unreasonable expectations on myself. I don't want to spend enough time chipping off of the block. When in reality, the process of you chipping off the block or sculpting your life or going through these adversities, especially if you're a believer, you have to know that you're going to need these skills most likely for whatever God has for you. So enjoy the process of sculpting your life. Don't quit. If you sit there and you look at a piece of stone, bro, it doesn't matter what you see in your head. It's gonna be like an overlay. Like, right, oh, this is what I see, but it's not actually there. You have to do three things. You have to realize you're gonna fail and you're gonna make mistakes. The sooner you embrace that is the quicker you can learn to look at your mistakes and your failures and get the lesson up out of them so you can keep pushing forward. That's number one, right? Number two, you got to be intentional. I like to be very careful about using words like intent and things like that because y'all know how I feel about the spiritual thing. You know, I have friends from various beliefs and whatnot, but I don't like to get too much into that manifestation. But I do think that you have to have intent, even from and I'm gonna tell you why I do believe in that. Even from a Christian side, right, or a spiritual side, right. Bro, you got to have intent to spend time with God. You have to have the intent to spend time in the gospel. I saw somebody yesterday on Facebook. They were like, bro, can somebody help me read the Bible, or it's just not interesting to me. And it's when I was young in my spiritual growth, I remember it, man. I say it all the time. Like, man, what the hell do these names mean? Why do we care about all these people begot this person and begot this person? Who cares? Where's the good stuff? Man, why do we care about the divisions of these countries and these cities? Meanwhile, thousands of years later, and I'm not laughing at it, the people dying over that. And that's why. So it's just like if you don't take intent, right? I think we're in this I think we're in this generation or this side reality. It's the matrix where we just think that if we wish enough, and even the people I know who may not be believers but talk about manifestation and intention, bro, they not manifesting and being intentional and not doing no action. You don't pray, God, let me have a house and a house fall out the sky. It doesn't work like that. So that's the second part, intentional. Number three, man, the journey is the actual masterpiece, bro. When I look back on the things that I've gone through just in life, man, I can see, and you can, I'm not going to say never, but very rarely can you see it when you're going through it. But as you mature, you can see so much. Like, it's just funny. Like, even old sayings I heard from people when I was younger, and I'm like, yo, these people knew what they were talking about. You don't see in that moment how that's going to benefit you. But especially if you're a believer and you have faith, you're going to realize that what you went through actually gets you to that place down the road. Self-gratification, instant gratification is not the way, bro. You can't cheat the journey. And if you try to cheat the journey, you're going to get to the end of it and realize like you don't care about this weak sculpture because you didn't put nothing into it. It's not going to matter. But when you put in blood, sweat, and tears, when you're intentional, when you fail and you have to get up and wipe yourself off, it matters. All right. So I just want to leave y'all with that, man. This has been episode 521, Chip Off the Old Block. Yo, y'all go share with your friends. I'm going to tell y'all what y'all going to have to do. You're going to have to follow the profile. You're going to have to share the post that's about to give away with 2 people, right? And I'm probably going to have y'all screenshot it or message me or something. It's a pair of free dunks, right? And I'm probably going to run my giveaway similar to this going forward. Outside of that, so like, subscribe, share, follow, Medicine Ball, LS3, all of that. Outside of that, man, 2 things every day. And I know I probably flip-flop on the order, but the order doesn't matter. Get them done. Lessen the suffering of somebody else and learn something every single day. And continue to take chips off of this old block as you sculpt, as you chisel this thing that is your life. This beautiful artwork and masterpiece. I love y'all. Stay up. Until next week. Yeah.